To me, Midnight Club 2 is one of the greatest racing games of all time, and it's my personal favourite. When people talk about their favourite racing games or which ones they think are the best, Midnight Club 2 is rarely brought up, if ever. In this video I want to talk about some of the things that this game did so right and shed light on why I think it's one of the best. The most important thing about a racing game in my opinion will always be the handling. You can have an amazing car list or an incredibly detailed map, but if the cars don't feel fun to drive, I won't want to play it. Midnight Club 2's handling is by far my favourite out of every racing game I've played. It's very responsive with tight controls and rewards players for having precise steering inputs. Cars generally feel like they have a lot of grip, but if you push a little too hard you'll be susceptible to spinning out. Each car feels different and has its own strengths and weaknesses. For example, a heavier car will have a much higher top speed but will struggle with acceleration and handling. Certain cars will also handle differently depending on their drivetrain, sometimes requiring you to use the handbrake to make sharp turns. Throughout the game you unlock abilities that you can use to enhance your driving, such as Nitrous, Burnouts and Slipstream Turbo. Nitrous is pretty self-explanatory. It's a single use instead of something that you hold, and the speed boost you get from it is insane. I think this is a great approach to it as it becomes a lot more strategic. You really have to commit to using it, and if you use it at the wrong time, you'll end up worse off. Burnouts are performed by holding the handbrake and the accelerator simultaneously. Once you let go of the handbrake, you'll get a much better launch, allowing you to get up to speed quicker. You can also use it to spin your car around on the spot, which can be incredibly useful after a crash points you in the wrong direction. Slipstream Turbo is essentially a weaker version of Nitrous, but it can be used an infinite amount of times. Once you start drafting another racer, a meter fills up, and once it hits the top, you can press the Nitrous button for a speed boost. If you time it right, you can use the Nitrous just before a Slipstream Turbo, giving you an even bigger boost of speed. There's also two-wheel driving, which I won't talk too much about as it only has a couple of niche uses. One thing that's so great about Midnight Club 2 is that you aren't just restricted to cars. The bikes are my favourite part of the game, and I spend the majority of my time playing using them. They are completely different to cars and feature their own set of mechanics. Weight transfer becomes a key component when using a bike, and if used well, you can easily outperform the fastest cars in the game. By holding weight transfer and steering, your rider will lean into the corner, allowing you to turn faster. However, in most cases, using the handbrake is actually faster, so it's not that important. If you hold forward, your rider will duck down, giving you a small increase to your top speed and acceleration, but by far the best way to gain more speed is by wheeling. By holding back, you'll perform a wheelie, which gives you a much bigger boost and also drastically increases your top speed. Another niche with the bike is that it's impossible to be slipstreamed. You can still slipstream other drivers, but only if they're using a car. Unfortunately, there are a few downsides to using a bike. One being that you don't have access to Nitrous, which isn't really a big deal since you can wheelie for a speed boost. But by far the biggest downside is being able to fall off of your bike if you crash. If you manage to fall off, you'll have to wait a couple of seconds before you can continue driving, and you'll respawn wherever your bike ends up, which can be in the wrong direction. Overall, it's very high risk, high reward, which I think is great. If you can manage to avoid traffic and master the weight transfer, you'll become impossible to catch. The career mode is very simple for the most part. You race someone, you take their car, then you move on to the next. Each person you race has their own set of cutscenes where you hear what they're saying in their head and then what they actually say to you.
Where does he think he is kidding, posing like that? Think he can race me in that car? Still, I must try to be nice, yo. Hey bro, follow me.
If there's one word you could use to describe the characters in this game, it's definitely stereotypes. You've got your egotistical rich kid,
but genetically, I'm the human masterpiece. Marvel at the wonder.
An Aussie,
Go on, mate, give it heaps.
and even a Yakuza member.
If I don't get what Gina owes me, I'll rip you apart!
Every character also has a ton of voice lines in-game where they react to different scenarios such as the type of vehicle you're using or if you crash. It's really quite impressive just how many there are.
I will eat your sister! Why am I losing my edge? Get your head out of Lucy's pants! Let me die.
As goofy as the characters are, they add a lot of charm to the game and help give it its own identity.
I am a proud race boy, and my image is extremely important. Time to drive. Let's jet!
The career mode takes place over 3 different cities being Los Angeles, Paris and Tokyo. Each city has a unique layout making them feel very distinct from one another. Los Angeles has a large intersecting highway, Paris has the catacombs with tight alleyways, and Tokyo features long straightaways and lots of junctions. The star of the career mode, however, is the design of the races themselves and how they play out. Unlike games such as Need for Speed Underground, there aren't any barriers that show you where to go. Checkpoints are placed throughout the city and you have to find your own way between them. The races are designed in such a way so that you learn the maps quickly as they take you through every inch of the city. A few races allow you to collect the checkpoints in any order you like with a definitive finishing checkpoint, and these races really test your map knowledge. Midnight Club 2 is widely known for being a very difficult game, and I agree, I think it's definitely a lot harder than most other racing games. This is mainly down to the open nature of the races, and of course there's the traffic, which can be overwhelming at times. The AI themselves aren't particularly fast, it's more so just how the game is. Take Savo's third race for example. It's an unordered race with just 4 checkpoints, but they are all placed in opposite corners of the city. Combine this with the tight streets of Paris and the incredibly heavy traffic and you have yourself a hard race. Another race that I would say is difficult is Kenichi's third race. The layout of this race is very simple. It's essentially a long straight line with a few corners so you can't really get lost. However, this is one of the few races that take place in the rain, and again the traffic is quite heavy, making it incredibly easy to crash. It's similar to something like Dark Souls in a sense. Once you memorise everything you start to realise that it's not that hard. I could just sit at the main menu for hours listening to its theme. Midnight Club 2 has a vibe like no other, and I've yet to see another game create something even close. Each city has its own selection of songs which help give them a particular atmosphere. Los Angeles has a heavy focus on hip hop, Paris focuses more on house music, and my personal favourite Tokyo has a lot of techno and trance. If you haven't heard the soundtrack for this game, I doubt you would even recognise any of the songs. There's nothing mainstream here, and the closest to that is probably Felix the House Cat. But I think that's for the best, as it kind of ties in with the underground street racing culture that the game portrays. Here are a few of my favourites. Another thing that I think is great about the game relating to the soundtrack is how each racer has their own song. It really gives each song a bit of meaning and helps to even out how much each song is played throughout the game. I'm sure if anyone who has previously played the game heard Brain 30 they would instantly relate it to Savo. Overall a very unique soundtrack, and I would highly recommend giving it a listen. There's a lot more to the game than just the career mode. You've got online multiplayer where you can play up to 7 other people, you can race each other, or you can play some other game modes such as Capture the Flag. I didn't get a chance to play the online on release, but I have played it a fair amount in recent years and it's a lot of fun. There's also a race editor, which is such a nice feature to have. It's incredibly easy to use and allows for a near infinite amount of new races. You can then take these custom races online to play against others, making a seemingly endless experience. You can also play some pre-made circuit races in arcade mode, or just take a cruise through a city of your choice. Midnight Club 2 has a ton of replay value, especially with the online modes, and it's why I have close to 1,000 hours in the game. Unfortunately, the game isn't without its faults. The PC version at least, I'm not too sure if these apply to console. Mainly minor things, but they can be annoying. The frame rate has a big impact on how the game plays. Pushing the frame rate above 60 causes you to take way more damage. Weight transfer is a lot slower, especially when using bikes, and vehicles will have reduced acceleration and top speed. I would highly recommend locking the game to 60 through something like Reaver Tuner. Some other bugs include the game not saving your selected transmission type if you set it to manual, not being able to shift into reverse when using manual, and manual shifting 2 gears at once when playing online. Basically, manual is very glitchy, on the PC version at least. In conclusion, Midnight Club 2 is a masterpiece, and if you haven't played it before, what are you doing? Go play it. Unfortunately, there's no good way to obtain a copy of the game for PC. It was taken off of Steam a few years ago, probably due to licensing, and the keys are around $90, so just get it on abandonware.